All right, we're back. It's COMP397. It's week 10, lesson 10, part 1. And we're going to talk about a couple things today. One of them is the final project again, which is due by the end of semester. And the other one that I want to talk about today, of course, is state machines. I want to hit that. If we have time, I want to see if we can do things with different tools. There's some other tools we have to talk about, which we'll be trying to get to today. But otherwise, really, it's in a nutshell, we're just talking about that for now. State machine is really important because if you don't have a state machine, then you can't have levels. And that's the biggest problem people have when they make their game. They don't know how to do it, right? And so that's why we're doing this, mail pilot demo. It's not for you guys to learn how to make a mail pilot, the game, but rather an example of how states work and so on. So continuing from what we did last day, which is last week, right? We have, just to review the project that we've got going on. And again, I'm using COMP397 Mail Pilot, which you can download from GitHub if you wanted to follow along with me. If you notice, at this stage, we have the state that we have the play state. And if I was to go into the play state for a second, line ending with this, fine or whatever. Let's just save everything. If you notice here, we have the play state. So here's our play state. We have a constructor. And in the constructor, what it's doing is it's calling the main method, which is right here. So this is the main method. Now the main method looks very similar to what we did with our main function that we had pretty much on game.ts. There's nothing different here. It's just all I've done is copy the information. So when I instantiate different objects, like for example the ocean or the island or plane or whatever, all these different things was what we were doing in our main function before. So here's our game state. Here's our game. So our main game TS file. And if you notice, all I'm doing here is I'm instantiating the play state. I'm saying my play state is equal to new state's play. Right? Okay, this is great if all I want to have is one state. But I need to have more than one state. I want to have multiple states. Right? I want to have the game over state. I want to have the game start state, so on. I want to have the instruction state. All these things. So how do I set that up? So the first thing I need to do is kind of put together a variable to hold the states. So what I'm going to put under game states, I'm going to create a new variable. I'm going to call it current state. Right? I'm not going to, there's a bunch of ways I can do this. If I was to type this variable, what type would it be? Right? And this is the challenge here. There is no type for this variable. It's a container, right? That's what I'm actually doing. I'm saying, or it's an alias, actually, more than anything else. So if I wanted to, and if I wanted to use typing, because we've been using typing all throughout this TypeScript, right? I could say type any, right? Type any means it'll hold anything, right? Again, this is the default type when we go with JavaScript. JavaScript, remember, there's some basic types. We don't talk about them because they're inferred, right? In JavaScript, it's loosely typed, right? So that's one thing you should take out of this course. JavaScript has no types. It's not like I can say, well, actually, if I say that, that's incorrect. I should say JavaScript has types, but we don't declare them. We don't sit there and say var my play is equal to a number. It's not like that. I don't declare play as a number or a current state as something else. But there is a number type in JavaScript. It's inferred when we use it, JavaScript, for the first time, and it's so flexible that if I change it to something else, like a string, it'll change the type, the memory location to a string. All right, that's what JavaScript does, and it's very flexible that way. But the flexibility causes programmers some issues because they're not used to that. They're used to very structured programming style, right? So what JavaScript also has is a type of any, which means, hey, I'll hold any type you give me. I'll hold a string type, I'll hold a number type, I'll hold whatever. And that's what this current state really is. Now, instead of doing that, because we know that's what it is, I'm just going to leave it as current state. The great thing about TypeScript, and here's one thing I'd like you to take away from this, because people are like, hey, why am I learning TypeScript? And aren't I supposed to learn JavaScript? Yes, you are. This isn't a JavaScript course, though, right? You're going to learn, if you're going to take a pure JavaScript course, you do it another, somewhere else. We're using TypeScript to kickstart our ability to use JavaScript. That's what we're doing, right? And so when we think about this, I can use the types from TypeScript if I want to, right? Or I can use no types. It's up to me. I can use as much or as little of the TypeScript structure as I'd like to give me more than one advantage. It gives me flexibility, so I can have the same flexibility I do with JavaScript, and it gives me structure if I want to impose it from TypeScript. So I've got both advantages. That's why I want to use it, right? So I've got this current state, and this current state is going to be our almost like an alias. So this is going to be our state alias. Now right now, what we want to do is, as we enter our, we kind of go into our game loop, instead of play.update, we don't want play.update, we want current state.update, right? But there's got to be a place, right, as an example, where I update my current state, or I declare that my current state is equal to something, right? Usually I recommend you do it somewhere up here, before the main, right? So before main is hit, we've already declared, as an example, our play state. If I say, for example, I haven't actually instantiated play state right here, right? But I want to start off with something that is going to start with something, play state or whatever. So I'm going to do that before main. So I'm going to say, I'm going to kind of make it like this. So current state, right, is equal to play. Okay, so what this means is, and I can do this like this, just like if we were to do this. If I was to make a new, if I was to declare a new function, right? There's two ways to declare a function, right? In JavaScript, I'm just going to play here with this thing here. One way is I could say this: my variable, right, is equal to new function, right? And then you have your function body, right? That's one way of doing it. My variable then is the name that we assign to this anonymous function, right? My variable then is an alias. It's a pointer that points to this anonymous function that's being held in memory somewhere. That's one way of doing it. It's a very common way of seeing things. Now the reason why it's giving me an error is because there is no my variable. I can declare it like this, right? That would take away the error. But that's what it is. My variable, whatever I want to call it, my variable name, right, is just an alias. Similarly, if I say current state is equal to play, where play we've defined, if I go back up here, play is of play state type. And remember, play state, we define our play as a new class that we have in our module states, right? And the class has a structure. It has a shape, right? That's what we have. Think about the shape of the class. It has an update method, and it has this public main method. These two methods, shape, if you will, is what kind of we've defined what play would look like. We haven't instantiated it though. We haven't created a new object, right? But all we've done is said, here's the shape. It's almost like we've got a kind of a blueprint, right? And all I'm saying here is, when I look at current state, let's go back to this. When I look at current state down here, right, which is above my main, let's get rid of this. This is just my example. Current state then is equal, it's a pointer, it's an alias, right, to, and if look what it says, current state is of type any. Now it is it's equivalent to play. Okay, I want you to keep that in mind. So if that's true, right, current state is equal to play, then I should be able to do one of these. Instead of play.update, I should be able to do current state.update. Because current state is equal to play, right? So then when I say current state.update, I really mean play.update. If that's true, all things being equal, when I run this program, I should get the exact same thing. Let's take a look. Let's refresh. Hey, what happened? How come my play isn't working? Let's just check this out. And I want to show you this stuff, guys, because sometimes we get a little bit confused. Let's take a look at our JavaScript console. Okay, cannot read property update of undefined, right? I did declare it, right? Here's my game.js and here's my game.ts, but I don't have, there's no definition for my current state right now. Here's current state. Here's current state. I'm making it equal to play, right? But I haven't defined what play is, right? So how could it know what to do? Well, this is a funny thing. Remember we talked about JavaScript and hoisting, right? Hoisting. So, you know, we have to understand what to do first, right? That's the idea. So then, if we don't know, you know, example what the state is, then how come when I do instead of current state.update, if I do play.update, how come it actually works? Because play.update is called down here, and we don't actually call our play until we don't define it until we're down here. How does that work? These are the things we have to talk about, right? How do I do that? Well, wouldn't it be better if, you know, as an example, instead of defining it up here in our play state, current state is equal to play, let's take this away. What if I went like this? I said, so after it's been defined, right, I declare my current state down here. I say current state is equal to play. Could I not do that? Right? And if I was to do that and refresh, shouldn't that work? Right? And it does, right? The reason why it works, and now I'm updating my current state. I don't have to change it all the time. I've created an alias, right, for my play state. So play is the actual state that we're in right now, but my play state is the one that I'm starting off with. Okay. In order for us to understand how do we switch from one state to the other, if I want to change from our current state, which is our play state, and I want to move to another state, which is, let's say, for example, if I had multiple states, the way we can do it, we have to be able to switch. We have to kind of detect what state am I in, right? What state am I in? And depending on the state that I'm in, right, I want to be able to, you know, switch to kind of change my you know, my functionality of my program. Now, when I state current state is equal to play, and I want to update my current state.update, I want to play that. That's one thing, right? I could declare something else. I could say, you know, and other iterations of this particular code. Like, for example, if I go up online and I look to, that's interesting. If I look online, and that's weird that didn't work, and I look at, I love it. Whenever I'm on secure, it always messes up, eh? It could be that. It also could be that I have to reset my my machine. Let's just make sure that I got internet access here for a second. And let's go to GitHub. Yes. I'm going to go shift back to secure for a second because sometimes we need to do that. Bear with me, gentlemen and lady. Nope, not that one. Not for New York. And let's check that out again. GitHub. Right, so I should have access. And sorry, just checking my virtual machine. Oh, it came back. There it is. So on GitHub now, when I look at GitHub, and if I look at my mail pilot, if I was going to search for my repositories, right? So if I said, you know, mail pilot, there's a couple of them. One of them is mail pilot v11, which I told you to kick off from, right? And if you look at this older version of my code, and again, I've learned as we move forward, things have changed. TypeScript has changed. The way I do things have changed. You know, those kind of things. We've learned new things, right? If I go to game.ts, I did it a little different last time. I said my current state is a number, right? My current state function is a type any, and there's a reason for this, right? So I could say instead of current state function, I could call this current state class or current state screen, whatever I want to call it. But this is what I really need to do: current state screen. Whereas my current state itself, right? I want to kick off this new constant, right? As an example, I'm going to call it the play state. Let me show you what I'm talking about now. So let's do a little bit of renaming. Right? So here's my variable that I have current state. But what I mean is my current state screen, if you will, like my play screen or my, you know, my menu screen. What am I talking about, right? If I went with the old way, I would have called this current state function. My current state function means, because remember, we don't have methods in JavaScript, we have functions. Our current state function then would be the one that I'm updating. Here's my current state function, whatever that is, right? And here's my current state function right now is equal to play. Okay, that's cool. I also need something else, like we said before, which was my current state. So if I go back down here and I go current state, that's a number, but we have to define. So for example, I want to give it I want to number each of my screens 0, 1, 2, 3, but I want to give them meaningful names, so I want to give them almost like a constant that I'm going to use. Now remember, I should have in here, if I go to my folders, right? Right now I have typings, I have a utility folder, and in my utility folder I have something called utility. Here's my utility class, right? In my utility class I have my distance formula, yeah, that I use. I need another folder, like a config folder, like I've used before, right? And I've got managers, objects, states, all kinds of other stuff. So here's my config folder. Let's make that up. So I'm going to go right click. I'm going to add. I'm going to get a new folder in here. And we're going to call this, and that's not what I want it. I'll drag and drop it in a second. We'll call it config. My config folder is going to hold together things like game constants and those kind of things. Now I don't have anything in there. I got to create a new module. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to add. I'm going to go a new TypeScript file. Right. We're going to call this config. Okay. And in our config module, so we're going to say module config. And we're not going to make classes like we did last time. Remember we talked about this. We're going to have some game constants, right? So here we're going to say, we're going to go state constants, right? And in here we're going to start exporting. So we're going to say export var, right? We're going to have our first state constant, which is going to be the menu state. And we're going to use the capitals just for our convention. We could use a const. If I wanted to, the latest version of TypeScript also supports the use of the keyword const, right? If I wanted to use that. That's accurate. It won't allow me to change. It's not a variable, right? So let's do that. Let's use my new keyword. So export const, and again I want to call this menu state, right? And it's of type number, right? And the value is equal to a 0. Right? It's just a number, right? So we're just assigning a friendly name to the constant menu state as opposed to 0. So when I say my state is 0, it means menu state, right? That's what I'm saying. Let's do the same thing for the other one. So const. All right, instead of menu state, now we're going to go to play state, right? Actually, let's do it in order. So the next one will be instruction state. Instruction state, right? And my number is still of a type number, and it'll be 1. And then we'll do the same thing. Export const, right? We'll do this. This is the play state. Now we don't have these other screens yet, but we will, right? And my number would be 2. And then the last one, export const. Here's my game over state, right? Game over state, just to be consistent with our types, is equal to 3. So there's 3 states. Now if I had a level 2 state, that would be another one. Level 3 state, right? Boss monster state, right? I can call it whatever I like. I can have a HUD state, you know. I can have an inventory state, right? I can do whatever I want, right? I can make as many states as I want. These are just screens. All right, so I've got this done. If you notice, it does give me the JavaScript, and the JavaScript creates an anonymous self-executing closure, right? That's what this is. So this is what the JavaScript does. It declares config as any type variable, right? And then it declares the function, right, where I pass config into it. And then what I say is config is actually an object, right? So when I can use this config.menu state, config.instruction state, and that's how it's going to look in my code when I include it. Okay, cool. But it is actually an object, and it's in a self-executing closure, which means that any variables that I've declared here aren't going to leak anywhere else. Okay, cool. So we've got this, my config. I want to kind of include my config in my index.html because it won't be available to me until I do, right? So, and I want to probably put it as high up as my utility class, right? So that's probably like one of the first things I want to put in here. And the reason for that is because I might add other things to my config, like for example my screen size. I could put my font type. I could put all the things in here as well. So let's just drag and drop that in here. So way at the top, like that's one of the first things that we should have. We should have access to. At the same time, I got to go into my game.ts file as we normally did before, and way at the top, before my utility class, I want to kind of put in my config. There we go. So we have access to my config now. Now, what? Now that I have this current state as a number, it is a number, and we're going to inherit the number that we're going to get from my config, right? So then, when I go into my main menu, this is where it's a good place to kind of declare what my current state is. So I say current state, right, is equal to, right, config dot menu play state, because that's the only one we have right now. Here's our play state. Okay, so that's easy done. All we're saying is current state is equal to 0, or sorry, equal to 2, because it's 0, 1, 2, right? That's all we're really saying here. We're just giving it a friendly name, so when you look at it as a programmer, you go, oh, I see what he's doing. He's making it so that the play state is active, right? That's my active state, if you will. I could have called this active state as opposed to current state. It's the same. Current, active, whatever. So we're going to set the current state. Right? That's what we're doing here. Okay, so we're almost there. All right, cool. Now, inside of my, instead of automatically doing this with our play state and actually instantiating our current state function, right? What I want to do, this is good. My game container has to be good. I have to definitely add my stage, my game to the stage. That's just normal, right? When I switch through my state, that's normal stuff. But what I want to do is I want to define, I want to switch through the type of state that I'm in right now. So how do I do that? So I'm going to go here. I'm going to define a new switch statement. And in my switch statement, remember, I got to switch something, right? So what am I switching? Current state. So switch my current state. And depending on what my current state is, right? Case, you know, again, if I have my config dot, we'll start off with menu state, right? Then, right, and if I've done this wrong, it's gonna tell me something's wrong. So case my current state, then break, right? Case my config dot instruction state as an example, then break. We use the breaks in switch statements to kind of indicate that that's the end of my switch. That's the end of my little block, right? Case config dot play state, right, and then break. And then finally case config dot game over state, and then break. That's what we're doing, right? So that's kind of our structure of our statement. And depending on what state we're in, this is our state machine. So here's our state machine. Let's call it a state switch, if you will, as well. There's different ways of looking at this thing. Okay, well, we have to put stuff in there that makes sense. Right now, this is in the wrong position. So we're going to take all this stuff out of here, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to go up here to our play state, right? And inside, between the break and the declaration, we're going to put that in there. Instantiate the play state, right? Now, there is no other state in here. So it's going to go through. It's not menu state. It's going to say it's not menu state. It's not instruction state. It is the play state. Then do this. Okay, and then when this is done, it's going to add it to add the child to the screen. Right? Add the game itself to the state, to the state. So if this works well, right? Let me just compile. Let me build everything first. I kind of like trying to build my solution once in a while to make sure there's no other extraneous errors that I've generated, right? All right, and now I'm going to run this thing. It should give us the exact same thing if I've done this correctly. And if it doesn't, right? And you know, we'll have what I did. I just have to refresh because I changed the way I did things. Everything is the same, right? I've got my state going on, and if I want to make sure that there's any kind of errors, again, I recommend highly that you use break, kind of console.log statements. And if you notice, there are no JavaScript errors. Okay, so good. So we've got the ability to get into this play state, if you will, right? Which is really cool. So we can do that. It's switching through my play state. It's saying, okay, I've declared that my starting state is up here before my main is my play state. So when it enters my main, then it's only simply going to take me into my play state. It's going to go, which one is it? Play state. Okay, do this. Okay, let's make a menu state. How do we do that? Very simply is the answer, right? First, we got to take elements of our play state and remove stuff we don't need. So let me get my collisions out of here, my assets out of here. Here's my play state. And I'm going to copy this play state almost exactly when we create our menu state with some other additions. We also have to add a couple assets, right? We need for our files, like for example, some kind of play button to get us going, okay? So let's do this together. So the first thing we need to do is go into states, and I'm going to take, make a new state. I'm going to go add TypeScript file, right? And we're going to make this, our first state is our menu state, right? We're going to create our menu state now. Okay, cool. Here's our menu. As you can see, there's nothing in there. And I'm going to take my play state, and I'm going to copy everything. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go into my menu state and paste. Well, that's all cool, but it can't be play anymore. We're doing a menu, right? So that's the first change. Okay. So our menu is definitely going to have a main, and it's definitely going to have an update method. Now, is it going to have a plane? No, I don't have to have a plane, right? That doesn't make any sense that I would have a plane. Will it have an island? No. How about clouds? No, right? Because I don't need those things, right? I don't even need collision checks. I don't even need a scoreboard, right? So all this stuff, she be out, baby, right? So I could get rid of all this, right? You know, if I wanted to use a plane just to kind of show that you want to play the game, like an actual plane that goes to the bottom of my screen, just like as the old school retro, I could include it, right? And plane also includes my my engine sound to start off the game. So maybe I want to include an ocean and a plane, but that's it. The plane doesn't do anything. There are no clouds coming down, or any ocean, or any clouds, or any islands. It's just that. Okay, so I've got these things. Let me just unpin this for a second. I need to instantiate an ocean. This is good, right? I need my new game container. Now, this is something I have to consider here. Right? Game is equal to new game. I'm doing that here in main, but I'm also doing that here and here. Why would I do that? Right? Well, there are some advantages to doing so. One is, whenever I redesignate my game, what am I really doing? I'm destroying my old game variable altogether. I'm overwriting it. If I go new with the current variable, if I put the new keyword in there, it just points at that variable and pulls the trigger. I just destroy it. It's actually a very destructive way of doing things, right? But it's actually effective in clearing up the memory, right? So, okay, so I did that. It's not wrong to do it, by the way. Some people decide not to do this. I do it all the time anyway, because what it does is it kills the old variable. Okay, so I need my ocean. I don't need my island, so I can get rid of that. So I'm not instantiating my island. I need my plane, because I'm just going to make my plane sound. Got to get rid of this. I don't need my scoreboard or my collision. And if you notice, I'm adding my stage, stage.addChild. I'm doing that here to be self kind of encapsulating. I don't need to, but I'll leave it like as is for now. You'll see what I'm talking about in a second. Okay, so this is all I have in my menu right now. I need a couple other things, right? For example, I don't in my assets. If I was going to look at my assets for a second, let's just pin this one, right? And if I go to my assets class, which I created under my managers, here's my manager's assets, right? If I look at here and see what it is, let's take a look. I've got my ocean, my yay, my thunder, my engine sounds, right? And then I'm loading a couple things, cloud, island, and plane, right? I don't got anything to do with a play button, right? And I need a play button in order for me to have something to click on to say play, right? Now, luckily, I have some old assets that I can probably use, and let's see if I can whip some assets up for myself instead of recreating the wheel, right? So I'm going to go into game programming, and there might be some assets that I can kind of go into. So I want to grab a button. That's my slot machine project. By the way, how did you guys find how'd you guys find the stuff? Let's see if I got a button here. My explosion, my plane, my swirl, my atlas. I don't need that. I want my buttons. Luckily, I do have my, if I have to, I can pull them down from GitHub, which I think I will. I think I'll do it. That's just easier. How'd you guys find the side scroller? Anyone else have any issues with side scroller? You're okay? You're laughing? What does that mean? Does that mean you're not good? Don't worry, guys. Even if you couldn't get it 100%, I still get part marks. That's what I do. So, you know, but you need to understand side scroller before you do your final project. Hopefully you found a partner, and we'll want to talk about that with you guys today. But let's go into this older version of MailPilot, just because I want to grab some of my assets. So I'm going to go MailPilot, here it is, and it's version 11. Now version 11, if I go into MailPilot, let's see what assets I have for images. I have my island, my ocean, my plane, my side plane. I also have an atlas. I could grab it from there. I would have liked to see, you know, kind of a detached button, but I can always grab it from there anyway. So let's just grab this atlas for now. Yeah, I'll snip it up. Right. So I've got a couple things. I got an instruction state, my play game, and my try again. Those things I need. I can grab those buttons for me, right? So I'll just download that image. So I kind of do right-click, save link as. It's a ping image. I'll put it into my downloads for now, so I can access it on the Mac side as well. So there it is, atlas.ping. Okay, cool. Let's go on the Mac side and let's take a look at my downloads. And I want to look for atlas.ping. I want to open that up. Hi there. And it says, hey, Tom, you can't open that darn file. How come? Well, because that file, atlas.ping, isn't a ping file, believe it or not. It's something else. And I've encountered this lately when it comes to some of this stuff, when I download individual files. The other way to do it, I'm trying to think here, make it quick for you guys so I don't waste your time, is I could go into my GitHub, my local folders, and find them from there. And there it is. Here we go. That's it. Sorry, I could have done this before, but hey. Oh, and you know what? I probably have earlier versions that don't have the atlas. Let me take a look which one, so I can actually give you the actual assets for the images. That's almost the assets I need. Yeah, no, I don't have them, so I'm gonna have to snip them, but that's okay, because I can snip them pretty good from what I have. So there's my assets, images, and there's my atlas, which is what I needed. And let me take that one and put it into my downloads. How about that? Paste. Okay, now let's go back. I know that that's properly an image, and I'm going to go in there, and it cannot open my request. Why? Why? That's really weird. All right, let's open it with Illustrator or something else. That's really weird that I don't have access to that today. I never have that problem. But you know how things are, right? Sometimes you just can't get what you want. Computers are funny things, right? So I'm using Illustrator now. For those people who love Illustrator, I'm okay with Illustrator. I don't mind it so much. The only thing is what I need to do, and if you notice, this is one ping file, is I want to get this instructions, my play game, and my try again state out of there, right? So with Illustrator, it's a little bit different because I have something called an artboard, right? Which is almost like a stage of its own. So Illustrator is a little bit different than what we used before. Okay, so how do I do that? So I'm going to go into my instruction state or my play game, and I want to kind of cut this piece out, right? So there's different ways I can do such a thing, right? Because I want to be able to cut and paste, right? And I'm trying to think about an easier way to do this with image manipulation techniques. And I'm trying to figure out the easy way because, you know, for Illustrator, it's not the same as it is with I think I probably need to select it though, the area that I want. Yeah, and I can convert it that way, or I can use an artboard. Okay, let's use an artboard to do that. So what I want to do with Illustrator here is I want to create a new artboard. So I'm going to go to Artboards. I'm going to move out. And let's go back out to the way it's going to be. Let's go back to artboards. And what I want to do is I want to institute a new artboard, which is right around my play game. And I'm going to kill my other artboard in a second. Right? Sorry guys, as I struggle. My favorite tool doesn't work. Actually, I could probably make it work, but time is the essence. Okay, so there's my artboard. I need to kill the other artboard for a second, and when I do this, I can kind of export one artboard as a ping file. And what I want to do here is go back to artboards, kill this one. And I don't care what's outside of the artboard, all I care about is what's inside the artboard, right? Let's go back, make sure it's a little bit better. So that's, yeah, it's just, I know, you guys are laughing at me, but it's got to be perfect, guys, I'm sorry to say. What was that? It's the worst. Okay, so there's my play button. And what I want to do now, oh, there's an extra artboard that I didn't want. Hold on a second, I just added an artboard for no reason. When I'm in artboard state, I don't want to do that. Okay, good. So now there's my play button. I don't know, I think I missed some of it. Let's try that again. I think what I want to do is kind of go up here like this. There we go. Okay, that's good. And now what I want to do is I want to say file. Which edges? What edges, man? Don't tell me these things, right? I want to export, right? That's the one thing I want to do, right? And let's see, I want to use artboards when I export, right? So all is what I want to do. And I want to make it a ping file. So when I say export, instead of my atlas, I want to call this my play button, right? And I want to target my downloads folder, right? Because I want to be able to use it on the other side. So export. It says, what's my resolution? 600 dpi is probably not the right thing. I want to make it for screen, which is 782, which is fine, right? And this is what it's going to look like. My background is transparent, and if you notice, I've got a bit of a square going on, but it's showing me what the size of my object is. Let's take a look. Okay, now let's go back to my to see if I've got my play button here, which I should have now. Here's my play button. Play button 01, right? And just to, you know, just to kind of make sure, I think my CS6 fireworks CS6 is misbehaving. Yeah, it is. See, ignore. And let's see if I can kick it off on its own, and then load up my play button. Because I like fireworks so much easier than everything else. Let's see if I can do this. And this is just working the other day, so it's kind of weird that it stopped. I have to complain to Adobe. Okay, so let's go back to downloads and click on my play button and press open. Please open. Yay. Okay, so just to kind of indicate that it's perfect. I want to make sure. I'm kind of a stickler for these things because one thing that I notice when we do this kind of stuff is that, you know, if it's not perfect, if you see edges here or anything else, this would be a problem. So if this play button works fine, I need to rename it, right? Because this can't be just the play button. I want to rename it as play button, not 01, but just play button by itself. So that's one thing I need to do. Okay, so that's good. My asset is ready to go for that one, which I'm going to add in. I need to do the next one. So it's easy enough. Now that I have artboards in Illustrator, we'll just use the same method. I'm going to move this whole artboard up, right? So it encompasses my instructions. I said, let's move that up to encompass my instructions. Illustrator has funny ways of doing things too, right? Although I have to say, for when it comes to logo design and other things, Illustrator's got so much power. Like it can do a lot of stuff with Illustrator that you can't do in other programs, or they're not made to do properly. I'm going to do the same thing here, file, export. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use artboards, which is very important. And instead of atlas.ping, we're going to call this thing, is it the instruction state I got? Yeah, instructions. So it's going to be instruction button, instructions button. There we go. And we'll save that, and we'll make it 72 dpi, right? Again, and press OK. I'm not going to move that. Let's change my artboard again and move it down so that way we encompass the try again button, which would be the one that I'm going to use on my game over state, right? Because I need that as well. Well, not quite. That's another great thing about Illustrator. Even though it shows you the background is white, you can tell if you've kind of captured the button or not. Okay, so this is my try again button. I'll do the same thing, file, export, and I'm going to use artboards, and I'm going to call this try again button. Try again button. And export. And 72 dpi, and press OK. Okay, good. So I've got all my buttons. We're just going to exit out of here. I don't care about this thing. Don't save. And let's go into, I know that they're working because I've tested them with Fireworks. I'm going to quit Fireworks for now. And what I'm going to do in my downloads is I want to just rename these things so that way I can, they don't have the 0, 1. That's the default. That kind of gets added in. So play button, try again button. Here it is. Let's rename these things. And my instructions button, which should probably be right here. Yeah. Okay, so I've got these 3 buttons, but I want to add them into my MailPilot stuff. And I have my MailPilot program, my kind of project right here that I want to add it into, right? So I've got almost like my assets that I want to use. This is the one that I'm going to have my images for my atlas, and I have my buttons. So what I want to do is I'm going to kick off another, just to make it easier, a new Finder window. Right, and I'm going to go back into my downloads and go into my assets here and just double click so we just always see his images. And inside my instructions button, I'm just going to copy and I'm trying to drag and drop here. Instructions, here's my play button, and one more would be my try again button, which is down here. Here it is. Okay, so we got all that stuff. And now what I need to do is kick off my MailPilot project. Now, if you noticed from before, I had these 3 things, and luckily I saved my MailPilot project for Texture Packer. And I want to drag and drop other ones in here to increase this atlas and create my new file, which is what I would want to do. So here's my new assets. I got my play button, right, and I've got my instructions, my try again button, and I've got my instructions button, and these are all the things that I'm adding in. Now, if you notice, so I'm going to go here. It kind of layers them like this, and the reason for that is, first of all, my size constraints, I said any size. I could put power of 2. No, I don't want to install that right now. My update. I could choose force squared, which is what I've done. If I undo that, it does this. Kind of creates a different shape to things. Squared. The great thing about squared is the whole thing is in a square, and it doesn't kind of kill some of this other stuff. Like I have a pattern here for whatever I have. When I do my publish sprite sheet, which is what I want to do now that I have a new one, publish my sprite sheet again, it's going to overwrite my sprite sheet for what I had before. I'm going to save my project now with the new settings. And when I go back into downloads, I have a bunch of those files, by the way. Here's my downloads. For you, because I want you to emulate what I've just done, right? And I want you to have access to those singletons, those little single files that I made. Here's my project. I'm going to include them in our latest build. So I'm going to go into my assets, my images, and I'm not just going to include my ping image for my atlas, but I'm also going to include other assets that are part of our assets folder, but not necessarily, we're not going to use them, right? Because I've got my images for my plane, my cloud, and whatever, but I'm also going to add in there for my buttons, so you have those too. So let's do that. So let's say play button. Let's add this in. And so you have that now. I'm going to get my try again button, just in case you want to use those without using it as a sprite sheet, and instructions button. Okay, so those are all my buttons. Now I need to change up my atlas because I've changed my atlas from what it was before to the new one, right? So let's drag and drop that. It's going to ask me to change it. I say yes. When I hover over it, it's going to show me should show me my new atlas. Let's take a look. Where the hell did that atlas go? That's bad, right? That's not right. She ain't right. Let's go back to what happened over here. Let's go back. I should have my new atlas in my things. Where did it go? Where did it go? There's things to check, right? Because you know I've modified this a million times. I don't want to check this again. So let's kick off that TPS file again. My MailPilot TPS file should have all this stuff. Well, where is it saving everything, right? And if you notice, it says users Thomas downloads, you know, as an example, MailPilot assets instruction button. And this is it tells me where I'm getting my stuff if I hover over them, MailPilot Cloud Ping, right? And if I want to, you know, publish my spreadsheet, I should be able to do it like this, right? So if I publish my spreadsheet, it says output files are newer than the input files, nothing to do, right? So where is this stuff publishing? Well, again, it tells me right here, my JSON file, here's my JSON file, right? It's going into images mailpilot.json. Where is my atlas going? That is an issue, right? I got to find out where my texture file is, right? So where's my texture file? It's got to be atlas.ping is what it's got to be under my, and it's probably right here. Look, here's my atlas.ping. It probably went down here right into my, but this is 2014, so that doesn't make any sense. I'm going to put this into my MailPilot, into my assets, right? And it's got to go into images, right? Let's make sure what this is so I can see what this is. Atlas.ping, my ping file right here, right? This is where it's got to go. Now the reason why it's all grayed out, image format ping, is, and again it's not looking at the right location. Here's my atlas. I need to point it to the new stuff. Now, so there's a couple ways I could do this, just to be clear. I have all my assets. I could recreate my texture packer and make sure it points to the right place. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, since we're at 9:17, I'm going to take a brief break, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, come back, and I'm going to have all that stuff ready for you, okay, instead of wasting your time.